Welcome back to Balls and All here on Mix 104.9. The man himself, Jacob Andre, is in the studio with us. Now, he's come up with a list, and that brought a lot of pleasure to me because I've got some kind of fetish with lists. I just really like lists, and no matter what it is, I'll make a list out of something. So, Jacob, what is your list about today?
And rating things. So today we've come up with a list of the top 5 most resilient athletes in the world.
Okay, so what is resilience and what is the criteria for your list? Because it is a broad topic, isn't it?
Yeah, so resilience is essentially the art of bouncing back. So having some form of adversity, going through something difficult, and then bouncing back and then succeeding in light of that. So what I've looked for in this top 5 list for the most resilient athletes in the world is that they had to, because it's in the world, they had to be world class in their sport. So they had to be, winning world championships or Olympic Games medals. They had to also, with resilience, when I started researching it and going out and asking for ideas out on Facebook for what people suggested, a lot of people started coming up with just athletes that were really successful. And so as I was researching it more and more, I realized that there is a difference between adversity in sport and adversity in life. And there's been some people out there that have been extremely successful in sport but had to have overcome so many life adversities. So adversities which have impacted all areas of their life and for almost their entire life.
So you've put a lot of time and effort into this list. So why not, we're not going to keep everyone there in suspense. We'll start with, it's a top 5, isn't it, Jacob?
Yeah, it's a top 5, and I've got a special mention. Yep. I'm almost sneaking in a 6, but yeah.
It's not yourself, is it?
No.
Okay, that's good. Yep.
All right, so number 5 is Anna Meares. So Anna Meares, the Australian cycling athlete, is a 2-time Olympic Games gold medalist, 11-time world champion. She's the most decorated female track cyclist of all time. She's a 5-time Commonwealth Games gold medalist and the Australian flag bearer and captain at the recent Rio Olympics this year. So her adversities, she actually broke her neck at the 2008 World Cup 7 months out of the Beijing Olympics. She fractured her C2 vertebra, which is up the top of her neck. She also dislocated her right shoulder. She tore ligaments and tendons throughout her body. She bruised her right hip and suffered skin abrasions. So what actually happened after that was she was back on the bike within 10 days going through her rehabilitation. She not only qualified for the Olympics in Beijing 7 months later, but she won silver at that Olympic Games. She then had depression in 2015 after a divorce from her husband, and she considered retiring from cycling. And what then happened was that she competed that year's World Championships and she actually won 3 medals. So that's why Anna Meares is in number 5.
It's pretty amazing stuff, Jacob. It'll be hard to beat. Number 4?
Hard to beat, but if anyone can beat it, it'll be this bloke. So Muhammad Ali, you can't have a top 5 of anything in sport really without Muhammad Ali. So just I might take a little while to get through this. 56 wins from 61 fights, 37 by knockout. 3-time ring heavyweight champion, 3-time lineal heavyweight champion, 2-time WBC heavyweight champion, 3-time WBA heavyweight champion, 3-time NABF heavyweight champion, 2-time AAU champion, 2-time National Golden Gloves champion, Olympic light heavyweight champion, International Boxing Hall of Fame inductee, and he lit the cauldron at the 1996 Atlanta Olympic Games, which is a memorable moment.
There's not much more you can say about Muhammad Ali, one of the greatest athletes of all time. Number 3, Jacob?
So just let me quickly go through his adversities. So he was introduced to boxing by a police officer when a thief stole his bike at the age of 12. I didn't know that. That was really interesting. He grew up obviously in racial segregation in the United States. I think he was born around the 30s or 40s or something. He refused to be inducted into the armed forces and was denied a boxing license as a result of that and stripped of his passport. He was later obviously diagnosed with Parkinson's disease and passed away unfortunately this year on the 2nd of June with septic shock. So yeah.
Cassius Clay, the great one, Muhammad Ali. Jacob, number 3.
Number 3, Kurt Fernley. So not as big a name as Muhammad Ali, but this guy has a congenital disorder called sacral agenesis, which prevented fetal development of certain parts of his lower spine and the entire part of his sacrum, which is the bottom part of his spine. He went on in a wheelchair to be a 3-time Paralympic Games gold medalist, 4-time world champion. He actually crawled the Kokoda track the year of the Olympics. I can't remember which year it was. It might have been 2008. And then in 2009, he won his 4th This is all in 1 year, 2009. His 4th New York City Marathon. He won his 3rd consecutive Chicago Marathon, as well as he won the marathons in Seoul, Paris, London, and Sydney. He was then awarded the Medal of Order of Australia.
It's a very big year, Jacob. If I can hold down a job for a year, then I think that that's been a very successful time for myself, let alone doing all those things that Kurt Fernley did. Very good stuff there, Jacob. We'll get you back later on for the top 2. I can't wait for that, and I'm sure everyone listening at home can't wait for that either. Welcome back to Balls and All here. Jacob Andre is back in the hot seat with his list of most resilient athletes in the world. So Jacob, very briefly recap your 5, 4 and 3 selections and then go straight into number 2.
Alright, so at number 5 we had Anna Meares, the Australian cycling athlete. Then in number 4 we had Muhammad Ali, no introduction needed there. Number 3, Kurt Fernley, the Paralympic Games champion. And then number 2, I've got Michael Orr. So Michael Orr is actually a Super Bowl champion. He's an All-American, and his life story was featured in the Academy Award-winning film The Blind Side with Sandra Bullock. He's actually one of 12 children. His mother was an alcoholic and crack cocaine addict. His father was murdered in prison, which I think may have been by his brother-in-law. I haven't seen the movie, so I'm not sure, but from the research I've done, that's what I could sort of gather. He had to repeat grade 1 and 2 because of his poor upbringing in his early years. He then attended 11 different schools in his first 9 years as a student, was placed in foster care at age 7, and alternated between living in foster care and being homeless throughout his childhood.
It's crazy.
Pretty bad place to be coming from, and pretty amazing place to have got to.
So his movie is The Blind Side. It wasn't straight out of Compton, was it?
No, it was The Blind Side.
Yeah.
Could have been. He probably could have played in both.
A bit of a tearjerker, that one, The Blind Side. Yeah, very good movie. Very good selection there at number 2. Number 1, I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, number 1. So this one's one that I sort of tossed up, and I almost thought Michael Orr could have been number 1, but I've gone with an Australian athlete for this one, not because we're in Australia, but because I believe this person truly believes to be in this number 1 spot. And that's the Australian surfer Layne Beachley. She's a 7-time world champion. She won the world championship 6 times in a row, and then won her 7th world championship 3 years later after the 6th one. She was inducted into the Australian Sports Hall of Fame, and she is an Order of Australia recipient. But let's hear her story. She was actually conceived during a date rape and then adopted out by her 17-year-old mother. Her adopted mother then died when Layne was just 6 years old, and her and her adopted brother had to be put into another family to be raised by a family friend of the adopted family. She then grew up in the competitive manly surfing scene and regularly competed against the boys. She went on to dominate female surfing and was one of a few female athletes to be given a wildcard entry to compete in a men's surfing event, and she's a pretty amazing not only surfer, competitive surfer, but big wave surfer as well.
Great stuff, Jacob. I love those lists. I think we could almost make it a weekly feature on our show, but that's something to talk about a little bit later on. But this one, what a better way to start a list by talking about the most resilient athletes. It's goosebumps, it shivers up your spine stuff. So just for everyone at home that may have missed a bit of it, or driving around in their cars, of course, could you please, one more time, repeat the top 5 most resilient athletes? So
the top 5, with the special mention which I alluded to earlier at the start of the segment, which is James Lawrence. So James has actually completed 50 Ironman distance events in 50 consecutive days in 50 states. Absolutely amazing, and he was actually 39 when he did that. And the last 5 kilometers of the marathon that he runs as part of that Ironman distance event, his young daughter ran with him on every single one. So she ran 50 5-kilometer runs 50 days in a row. So number 5, Anna Meares. Number 4, Muhammad Ali. Number 3, Kurt Fernley. Number 2, Michael Orr. And number 1, Layne Beachley.
Very good, Jacob. Thank you very much for that list. We love having your company here on Mix 104.9 as always.